It is 2 in the morning. The rain has been beating against your bedroom window for 3 solid hours. You swing your legs out of bed, walk down the dark hallway, and open the door to your basement. You do not even have to turn on the light to know what is happening. You can smell it. That sharp, damp, musty smell of wet concrete. You hear the sump pump in the corner, straining and whining, fighting a losing battle against the water that is pushing its way through your foundation walls. Sitting on your kitchen counter upstairs is a glossy folder from a basement waterproofing company. Inside that folder is a quote for $14,000 to dig a trench, lay a French drain, and install a commercial-grade pump system that will tie you to the electric company and a maintenance contract for the rest of your life. Now, I want you to sit with this. There is a 5-gallon plastic bucket sitting in the corner of my barn. It cost about $4 at any hardware store. Combined with a few shovelfuls of plain gravel and a piece of cheap landscape cloth, it makes a complete system that costs less than $6. It takes 1 hour to build with nothing but a shovel and a hand drill. And once you put it in the ground, it will take the hundreds of gallons of water pouring out of your rain gutters and quietly vanish it deep into the earth. It does not use electricity. It does not require a permit. It will never break down in a storm because gravity and dirt do not experience power outages. My name is Elias Yoder. I am Amish. I farm in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania. I live in a farmhouse that was built in 1890. It has a stone foundation and a dirt cellar. And that cellar stays bone dry through the wettest spring storms, with no sump pump and no machinery. Today, I am going to show you exactly how to build what the old farmers call a bucket dry well. I am going to show you exactly where to put it, how deep to dig it, and why the plastic extensions you bought at the home center are secretly ruining your foundation. Stay with me. Let me start by telling you the lie you have been sold. Because if you do not understand what the modern industry is doing to your house, none of the rest of this will make sense, and you will just keep paying them to fix a problem they created. Look outside your window at your downspout right now. If you are like most folks, you probably have a piece of that black corrugated plastic pipe attached to the bottom of it. The one the hardware store sells for $15. You stretched it out across your grass. It is ugly. Every time you mow the lawn, you have to move it out of the way. Half the time, the dog steps on it, or it gets crushed, or it just disconnects from the downspout altogether. And when the heavy rain comes, the water rushes out, pools at the end of that plastic tube, and just sits there on top of the heavy soil. And slowly, quietly, that pooled water works its way right back underground toward your foundation walls. Now, think about what the professional waterproofing company wants to sell you when that water finally reaches your basement. They want to come inside your house. They want to jackhammer the edges of your concrete floor. They want to lay a French drain inside your basement, leading to a plastic pit, with an expensive electric sump pump sitting at the bottom of it. Think about the absolute madness of that arrangement. They are letting the water breach your foundation. They are letting the enemy entirely inside the gates, just so they can sell you an expensive machine to push it back out. A machine that relies completely on the electric grid, which is the very first thing to fail during a severe summer thunderstorm. They are treating the symptom, and they are charging you a fortune to do it. We treat the disease. My grandfather did not have a jackhammer. He did not have an electric sump pump. If water got into our dirt cellar, it would ruin the potatoes and root vegetables that were meant to feed our family straight through the winter. We could not afford to let the water inside in the first place. We had to stop it at the outside. We had to stop it at the source. The roof catches the rain. The gutter catches the roof. The downspout catches the gutter. But it is what happens at the exact bottom of that downspout that decides whether your basement stays dry or becomes a moldy swamp. You do not need to pump water out of your house if you never let it touch your foundation. The $6 bucket does exactly that. But to make it work, you have to understand a simple, ancient rule of water and earth, which I am going to show you right now. Let me explain the simple physics of what we are going to build. Because once you understand how water and earth actually work together, you will realize why this trick has been quietly saving farmhouses for over a century. If you take a gallon of water and dump it flat onto the hard, packed clay of your lawn, it does not soak in immediately. It spreads out. It runs down the path of least resistance, which is almost always right back toward the backfill of your foundation. But if you dig a deep hole, fill it with loose stones, and pour that same gallon of water directly inside, the water does not spread across the surface. It vanishes. It goes deep underground and slowly filters outward, far away from your basement walls. The engineers have a fancy name for this. They call it an underground percolation system or a dry well. They will charge you thousands of dollars to install a massive plastic drum in your yard to do it. We just call it a bucket in the ground. Here are the materials you need. You can find every piece of this in your barn or at the local hardware store for pocket change. First, you need a standard 5-gallon bucket with a lid. Not a heavy-duty industrial barrel. Just a regular plastic bucket. Dark colors are fine, but any bucket will do. If you have to buy it, it is about $4. Second, you need a few shovelfuls of plain gravel or small stones. You do not need expensive washed river rock. Any clean stone from your driveway or a cheap bag of crushed gravel from the garden center will do perfectly. This costs maybe $2. Third, you need a piece of old, breathable fabric to act as a filter. The old folks used a scrap of burlap or a piece of heavy cotton muslin. Today, a scrap of landscape weed fabric works beautifully. You just need something that lets water pass through but keeps the dirt out. And lastly, you need a drill with a regular drill bit, or even just a sharp knife if you have patience, and a shovel to dig the hole. That is the entire list. Less than $6 in materials. The concept is beautifully simple. We are going to bury this bucket out in the yard, a safe distance from your home. We are going to pipe the gutter water directly into it underground. The bucket will act as a holding tank during a heavy downpour, catching the rush of water so it does not overwhelm the soil. Then, through holes we drill in the sides and the gravel we pack around it, that bucket will slowly, gently release the water deep into the subsoil, far below the surface where it cannot run back toward your foundation. No flooded yard. No ugly black plastic pipe tripping you up. No water in your basement. Now, let me show you exactly how to build it. Here is how you actually build it in your own yard. It will take you about 1 hour on a Saturday morning. You will know every piece the way Cora knew it. Step 1 is the hole. And this is where most folks make their first mistake. Do not dig the hole right next to your house. If you put a dry well 2 feet from your foundation, you are just building a swimming pool for your basement walls. You must step away. Walk out at least 6 to 8 feet away from your foundation. Look at the slope of your yard. You want to pick a spot where the ground is naturally sloping away from your house, not toward it. Gravity is your friend here. Do not fight it. Take your shovel and dig a hole that is wider and deeper than your 5-gallon bucket. You want it deep enough so that when the bucket sits in it, the top lid of the bucket is about 3 or 4 inches below the surface of your grass. Digging the hole is the hardest part of this whole job. Once the dirt is out, you are halfway done. Step 2 is preparing the bucket. You are going to turn this simple plastic bucket into a heavy-duty water strainer. Take your drill with a 1/2-inch bit. If you do not have a drill, an old pocket knife heated up will work just fine. Drill holes all around the sides of the bucket and all across the bottom. You want plenty of them. Space them about 2 or 3 inches apart. Do not be shy with the drill. The goal is to let the water escape out into the earth as quickly as the soil can drink it. When you are finished, your bucket should look like a plastic piece of Swiss cheese. Next, cut a hole right in the center of the lid. This hole needs to be the exact same size as the plastic drain pipe you are going to run from your downspout. Usually, that is about 3 or 4 inches across. Step 3 is the assembly. Down at the bottom of the hole you just dug, shovel in about 2 or 3 inches of plain gravel. This gravel base does something very important. It keeps the bottom holes of your bucket from getting plugged up with thick mud. It gives the water a clean, open space to flow into the earth. Set your drilled bucket right on top of that gravel base. Now, take a trenching shovel and dig a shallow, narrow trench from your house's downspout straight over to the top of your bucket. Lay a piece of solid PVC pipe or corrugated drain pipe in that trench. Connect one end to your downspout and push the other end right into the hole you cut in the bucket lid. Now, fill the empty space around the outside of the bucket with more gravel. Pack it in nicely. This gravel acts as a second filter, holding the dirt walls back while giving the water a place to spread out before it hits the soil. Step 4 is the cover. If you just throw dirt on top of this right now, the first heavy rain will wash all that loose dirt down into your bucket and clog your whole system. You have to protect the bucket. This is where your old fabric comes in. Take your scrap of burlap, old cotton, or landscape weed cloth and lay it flat right over the top of the bucket lid and the gravel around it. This fabric is the secret. It lets the water breathe, but it absolutely stops the dirt and mud from falling down inside. Once the cloth is laid flat and tucked in, you take the soil you dug out earlier and shovel it right back on top. 3 or 4 inches of dirt is all you need. Tamp it down with your boots. Plant a little grass seed on top, or lay a piece of sod over it. By next week, the grass will grow back. You will look out your kitchen window and see nothing but a perfectly flat, clean, green lawn. No ugly black plastic tubes, no trip hazards, and underneath that grass, your $6 system is standing guard, ready to catch the worst storm of the year and bury the water deep underground, far away from your foundation. Now, let me be completely honest with you. That is the only way I know how to do this, and it is the only way this channel stays worth your trust. I will never sell you magic. I will only teach you physics, and physics has its limits. If a man tells you his trick works perfectly in every single yard in America, he is either a fool or a salesman. This $6 bucket system works beautifully for most homes, but there are 3 honest rules you must respect or you will fail. The first is the water table. This system relies on dry, deep soil absorbing the water. If you live in a low-lying swampy area, or if your property has a high water table where the groundwater sits just a foot or 2 below the grass, this will not work. If you dig a hole and it immediately fills up with groundwater from the bottom, a dry well cannot help you. You cannot pour water into a cup that is already full. This trick needs thirsty soil underneath it. The second is the slope of your land. Now, I mentioned it earlier, but it bears repeating because it is absolute law. You cannot fight gravity. The surface of your yard must slope away from your foundation. Even a slight downward angle is enough. But if your yard slopes heavily toward your house, putting a bucket in the ground will just create a holding tank that eventually pushes water right back into your basement. If your land slopes the wrong way, you have to grade the dirt first. You have to fix the slope before you fix the water. The third is the most serious. It is about what is hiding under your grass. Out on the farm, I know exactly what is buried in my fields. But in a modern subdivision, your yard is a maze of utility lines. Electric wires, natural gas pipes, internet cables, and water mains are all sitting right where you want to dig. Never take a shovel to your yard blind. Make the phone call. It is free. Have the utility men come out and mark the lines before you break the earth. Striking a gas line for the sake of a downspout is the kind of mistake you cannot afford to make. Know the limits of the tool, respect the earth, and it will serve you. I want to take a moment because this is the part that matters most. Think about who actually profits from a flooded basement. The waterproofing companies profit. The sump pump manufacturers profit. The electric company profits. When you call a professional because your basement smells like wet concrete, they do not look at your downspouts. They look at your bank account. They hand you a contract for $10,000 or $15,000. They bring in heavy machinery. They tear up your basement floors. They install an interior French drain and a commercial sump pump system that ties you to a maintenance contract. Why? Because a mechanical pump is a product they can sell you. A pump is a machine that eventually breaks down, which means they can charge you to fix it, and then sell you a brand new one a few years later. They are building a long-term business on your dependency. Now, think about the exact moment you actually need that sump pump to work. You need it most during a massive, violent summer thunderstorm when the rain is coming down in heavy sheets. And what is the very first thing that happens when a violent storm hits your neighborhood? The power goes out. The electrical grid fails. So there you are, standing in the dark, with a $15,000 waterproofing system sitting in your basement, completely dead and useless, while the water rises around your ankles. The salesman will tell you that you should have bought their expensive battery backup system. But that is just another machine. Another expensive battery to replace every few years. Another layer of dependency. They have sold you a cure that fails exactly when the sickness is at its worst. There is no money in a $6 plastic bucket. No contractor can build a national advertising budget around a hole in the yard and a few shovelfuls of plain gravel. No salesman gets a commission for telling you to let gravity do the work. Gravity does not have a customer service line, and dirt does not charge a monthly subscription fee. The simple knowledge of how to manage rainwater naturally was not lost or destroyed. It was just quietly pushed aside. It was drowned out by 100 years of loud advertisements for expensive machines. We never forgot this trick because we never wanted their machines in our homes in the first place. We rely on gravity. Gravity does not experience power outages. Gravity has been pulling water down into the deep earth since the beginning of time. When you build the bucket dry well, you are not dependent on the electric grid. You are not dependent on a contractor's warranty. You have solved the water problem permanently, at the source, with your own two hands, for the price of a sandwich. That is what true independence looks like in your own backyard. So, here is what I want you to do this coming weekend. Walk around the outside of your house. Look closely at where every single one of your downspouts empties. Pick the absolute worst one. The one that dumps water right against your foundation wall. The one that makes your basement smell like wet concrete. Go to the local hardware store and buy a plain 5-gallon bucket, a small bag of crushed gravel, and a cheap scrap of landscape fabric. Spend the $6. Spend 1 hour of your Saturday morning digging a hole 6 to 8 feet away from your house. Drill the holes, connect the pipe, bury the bucket under the grass, and let the deep earth do the rest. Watch what happens during the next heavy rainstorm. Watch your basement stay completely dry, while your neighbor's electric sump pump struggles to keep up. Tell me in the comments below, what is your basement situation like right now? When the heavy summer rains come, exactly where does the water get in, and what state do you live in? I read every single one of these comments, and the honest stories you share about your own homes are the reason I keep recording these videos. Next time, since we have been talking about wet basements, I am going to show you the old farm trick for pulling the mold and that damp, musty smell out of a dark cellar. It uses no harsh chemicals, no expensive electric dehumidifiers, and it works far better than bleach. It is the natural next step after keeping the water out today. Subscribe so you do not miss it. Until then, grab a shovel, bury a bucket, and remember, the people who built this country with their hands knew things we are only just starting to remember.